Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes him pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's facts. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Episode 122 of the Last Round Podcast. Thanks again for listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Boxing Social. Geo, what's that? There's one in India that we got on. It's called like Geovan
or something.
Geovan or something. I'm pretty sure we're saying it wrong. But
big up to our Indian market.
Yeah, our Indian market. It's like that app is actually, according to our statistics, is actually pretty popular. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. I looked at it the other week, and we have a lot of listeners on that app in that area of the world. So we appreciate all of our listeners, not just on every app, but especially on that one in the country of India and in that part of the world. But once again, guys, we appreciate you guys listening. Jumping right into it from last Thursday, from Puerto Rico, Miguel Cotto's and Felix Trinidad's home country, Ring City, USA has lived up to their moniker, anytime, anywhere, 50-50 fights, as Angel Fierro gets the dramatic upset knockout victory over Alberto Machado. Machado had actually knocked down Fierro twice before he got stopped. And Fierro, I don't know if you know this, Mike, I'm pretty sure you do, but Fierro was a late substitution. I think we all know that it was supposed to be Robert Garcia's Hector Tanajara in that bout. And Tanajara, I think they said he became ill or he got sick, or, I forgot what the actual reason was, but Fierro comes in and as a late replacement and gets the dramatic win. What'd you think about that outcome and that fight?
I mean, it looked like it was Machado was kind of getting back to work when he, dropped Fierro, twice. You could kind of see like, okay, he's getting himself back into the win column after those, couple of defeats to Andrew Cancio. And then he just all went downhill. He's kind of going back in straight lines. Fierro caught him, kind of backing up against the ropes. And then that was all that she wrote. A beautiful little combination. And down he went. But those Ring City shows, yeah, like you touched on, they really are like great 50-50 fights. If you look at the, I think the 2 or 3 fight cards that they've had, you get a lot of the B-sides actually, come out on top because, just they're so well match made.
Yeah, the interesting part about Machado, I think everybody could agree, is that he's so interesting to watch, especially the last couple fights. If you include the Cancio fights in Indio, California. And then this one as well, is that in those fights, at least in the first Cancio fight and this one, he was winning. I think in the first Cancio fight, he knocked down Andrew Cancio. He had a knockdown, and it looked like, okay, he's probably on his way to a win. And then he got stopped from a body shot. And then this one, he knocks Fierro down twice. But the crazy thing about those knockdowns in this matchup last Thursday in Puerto Rico, Fierro got up right away from those knockdowns. Especially the second knockdown, it looked like a pretty hard shot, and he popped right back up. And I remember watching that and thinking, oh, he's getting up too fast. So like his legs are but he got up fast and he was fine. And the kid's only 22 years old, from Tijuana, Mexico. So I was surprised when I heard his age. I was thinking that he was older, maybe in his late 20s, but then they said that he was only 22, and then he ends up pulling out the upset win. I mean, it's at 22 years old. I think that just skyrocketed him in an easy sense of the word into, I guess, some type of stratosphere in the boxing world. This was contested at what was it, 135?
Yeah, I think Machado moved up after those defeats.
Right. So I believe this is at 135. I mean, if Fierro can capitalize on this momentum, and move forward and get some bigger fights and actually win and pull out more wins. I mean, what kind of a story would that be for the sport of boxing? But the only thing I think about when I see situations like this, do you remember? I think we were both there in Anaheim, California, at the Honda Center here in Southern California, when it was, I believe it was Robert the Ghost Guerrero. It was a Showtime card, and he faced. He was an Argentinian guy. He was a taxi driver. He was a cab driver, and he won. He won the fight. He stopped him. I've always remembered that fight because they brought. I think Samson Boxing was his promoter or his manager at the time, and I remember he brought the fighter. And his name's just slipping my mind right now. I'm sure it'll come to me later, but he brought him to the media, to us, to we can ask some questions after. And then you can tell he was excited. And Samson was saying, you can see a big smile on his face saying, oh yeah, he's definitely going to be back. He's got all his momentum. I mean, I hope it doesn't happen to this kid. Cause I mean, it happens in boxing. You get a big win, a significant win over a decent name or a bigger name than yours, obviously. And you start getting attention. I think at 22 years old, though, he has more than enough time ahead of him to capitalize on this momentum. And Machado, I mean, I don't want to necessarily go the route to say Machado is done, because he, like I mentioned, he did get 2 knockdowns early in the fight and was winning the fight. It did look like he was on his way to a victory. And then he just gets stopped. I think that's what makes him so polarizing, especially the last couple of fights, is that he ends up almost winning and then he ends up losing in a dramatic fashion. I mean, I think that's the definition of boxing and why people watch fights. What do you think?
I think he's done. I just think that kind of when you see his face and stuff like that, I just don't know how much he wants it anymore. He was squeezing himself down to make, 130 for all those years. He's moved up now. I don't know. I think the blueprint as well. I think Cantio kind of set the blueprint for people going forward. Just work to the body because he's got such a big frame. But, he was balling himself down. So maybe even 135 is too much for him. Obviously, he wasn't stopped by a body shot this time around. It was a nice combination which caught him and, sent him to the floor. But I just don't know. Just looking at him, I just don't know how much he's got left. Those people in the smaller weight categories don't necessarily always go around for too long because, the weighing only like 130 pounds, 135 pounds. It's a very strict diet. It gets to the certain point where it's just too much for your body. It won't give in. It won't give you those last few pounds anymore. Machado is only 30, only has 25 pro fights. But in his last 3 fights, I think he's looking done.
Maybe. I don't necessarily disagree with that notion, but I would lean towards more that he still has gas left in the tank where he can still produce some exciting fights and maybe be a decent opponent for other fighters as moving forward. Because as I mentioned, he had 2 knockdowns in this fight. And in the Cancio fight, excuse me, especially in the first fight, he did knock him down 2 as well. I think I just used 2 words, 2 as well. Forgive me for that. But he obviously still has boxing ability. He still has that threat of knockdowns and possible KOs. So I believe he just gets caught. He just gets caught, just like he did on this one. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure his team is going to, and I think Miguel Cotto still promotes him, right? Or is that his promoter still, or his team?
I think he might be in association with Golden Boy, right?
Something like that. I'm sure it's shared in some way, but do you see Machado and his team maybe asking Fierro for a rematch or trying to make a rematch? Maybe on another Ring City card, or maybe Golden Boy's going to be like, oh, we'll take it. We'll put it on DAZN. Yeah,
you would think that you would probably want to right that wrong maybe early on, or maybe he's just going to move on to, something else. And probably have to sit down with his team and just see, was it a stylistic matchup? Was it just he underestimated him because he was a last-minute opponent? But you kind of looking around now and you're seeing how many of these last-minute opponents are springing surprises. Look at what happened to, Josh Warrington with Lara. So I think some people are probably going to be looking at these last-minute opponents now and thinking you definitely don't want them from, South America because those guys are coming to fight and are causing the upset.
Right. Crazy. But moving on, fight reviews. Another fight review, actually. This past Saturday, the 20th of March, from the Wembley Arena in London on DAZN. McDonald's supported, just like we just talked about before we started recording, like McDonald's number one fan, or actually not number one fan, but McDonald's is probably going to be a future sponsor, especially if he keeps winning. Lawrence Okolie, 16-0, gets the 6th-round knockout over Christoph Glowacki. How did you say before that they pronounce it?
People either the Glowacki or Glowacki.
Glowacki.
This depends, I think.
It's one of those. It's one of those. We gotta get it right. Okolie wins the vacant WBO cruiserweight title, and as I mentioned, following his win, McDonald's, at least the UK arm of McDonald's, put on social media, I believe on Twitter, and showed their support for him. I believe that Okolie once worked there when he was younger. Is that true?
Yeah, they kept that quiet. They didn't. They think they brought that up every 5 minutes. That he used to work at McDonald's and he used to weigh 500 pounds. You're like, yes, we all know that. They kind of did that to death. The fact that they kept going over that in the commentary team and stuff like that. But great story. It just shows. He sees Anthony Joshua at the 2012 Olympics, wins the gold medal, and he's 300 pounds, and he goes around and tells everybody that he's going to become a pro boxer. And I think even now, looking at him, a couple of years ago when he was fighting Isaac Chamberlain, and I think, Okolie had obviously good confidence that he could turn pro, win the British, European, and get up to, world title level. And it just goes to show, don't give up on your dreams, because, when he fought Isaac Chamberlain that time and it just turned into a hugging contest, I think me and everybody else that watched that fight said there's no way on earth that Okolie is going to win a world title. So, just, follow your dreams. Don't listen to what people tell you, because he's proved everybody wrong.
He especially proved you wrong.
Yeah. That Chamberlain fight was one of the worst fights I've ever seen.
Is it really? Was it really?
Honestly, it was when it was out. I remember watching it, just like, oh my God, because the build up for it was, they're both from London, kind of a good build up, and you kind of thought, this is going to be guys are going to just stand in the center of the ring and just throw down. But Okolie had that very awkward style. He would kind of like punch and just hold, clinch constantly, so you can't get countered. And just a change of trainer and going to Shane McGuigan now, he uses his attributes, his physical attributes perfectly, which is going to be the opposite to when we talk about the Mo Hooker, which Mo Hooker doesn't. Okolie just uses that huge reach that he has, uses his height advantage, and that's just a perfect stoppage as well. Like clinical, just a 1 and a 2. Boom, straight down the pipe, and it took him out. Great performance.
At 6'5" and 28 years old, undefeated, 16 wins now, 13 by way of a knockout, and now he is a WBO, as I mentioned, WBO cruiserweight world champion. What's bigger here? You tell me here, Mike. The WBO cruiserweight title that he has, or if he gets a sponsorship from McDonald's.
In terms of cash, imagine that. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Nice little payday getting sponsored by someone at McDonald's. I'm sure that would pay well.
I think we all know this. Hardcore boxing fans know this. But once you bring attention to the table, look, it's like case in point. Your favorite fighter in the world right now, Ryan Garcia, being sponsored by Gatorade. I believe. I don't even know if they officially announced that. I think they reported it, but maybe they officially announced it. I'm not sure. But he's sponsored by Gatorade, and then he has like social media fame and all these other sponsorships and different angles of attention. If Lawrence Okolie can get McDonald's to be involved in every time he fights in terms of a sponsorship on the ring, on his tights, or they sponsor the telecast, like each commercial or something like that, that's gonna, like, every promoter is going to want him on their cards because of that. I guarantee you. So, I mean, if anybody from his team at this moment is listening to our podcast, this week's episode, please follow up on that lead. Please follow up on that lead and reach out to McDonald's public affairs team, international public affairs team, whatever you have to do, and try to secure that guy a sponsorship or have them join the team or sponsor some future fights that he has when he defends this title. I mean, the guy's a world champion now. And imagine the story that McDonald's can utilize here in terms of this guy used to work for them and he was very overweight at one point in his career or in his life for that matter. And he gets into a professional sport, turns pro, gets in shape, and becomes a world champion.
16 fights.
In 16 fights.
It'd be like that Subway. Remember that Subway guy lost all the weight that was a pedophile? Right. And then he went to prison. Yeah. But just imagine that. And especially if he keeps winning, and maybe he can eventually move up to heavyweight and fight the bigger names. Just imagine that. And McDonald's is right there along for the ride. And, you know, them and DAZN or whoever's a part of it can follow him in like a documentary style, you know. Just imagine that. Just imagine those possibilities. He's already managed by AJ.
Oh, he is. That's right. Yep. Anthony Joshua is, you know what? Even better. Why not be managed by one of the biggest stars in boxing, arguably the top 3 biggest stars in boxing in Anthony Joshua. Definitely the biggest star in boxing in the UK, I would say. Maybe Tyson Fury and, you know, but you don't think that Anthony Joshua is going to utilize his reach in the world and be like, hey, let's see what we can do here. You know, somebody reach out to McDonald's, tell them I'll do some free advertising for them or something, you know, like, I don't know if anybody's ever been sponsored by like a McDonald's or like a Burger King or anything like that. I mean, can you remember anybody like that?
Just the other guy, the Subway guy that fought Caleb Plant, Mike.
When was that?
He was the Subway guy, wasn't he? He was the face of the Subway commercials for a period of time. He fought Caleb Plant like 3 fights ago. He's called Mike something.
He was? Oh, yeah. I was thinking, yeah. At first when you said that, I was like, you mean the guy who went to prison? But not him.
Yeah, there was him as well, the pedophile dude.
Right, but he wasn't a fighter. When you were saying that, I was like, that guy wasn't a fighter. But I'm not sure. But yeah, good luck to him. And you know, it seems like there's a lot of big things ahead in his career, especially if McDonald's jumps on the bandwagon, which they Mike Lee. All right, I gotcha. Moving on that card, Chris Billum Smith. Billum Smith gets the unanimous decision win over 10 rounds over Vasil Ducar for the vacant WBA Continental Cruiserweight title. Another cruiserweight matchup. What did you think about Smith's win?
I thought he won it, but he made it hard work. In my opinion, I thought the scorecards kind of flattered him a lot. He's too easy to hit. I think the fact that he's got a good chin makes him kind of, he has too much confidence in it. He knows that he can get hit. When he fought Richard Riakpar, he took a few heavy shots from Riakpar, who's kind of known to be heavy-handed. And then obviously Vasil Ducar was catching him a lot. Billum Smith, kind of started off good. I thought he was actually going to make an easy night of it. And then I don't know whether he kind of punched himself out and had to kind of take a few rounds off to gather some energy. And then obviously ended up just getting the points decision. He got the rounds in, but I think if he's going to go up to, fight the better people in the higher parts of this division, he needs a little bit more head movement. But maybe he just, tasted the power of Ducar and thought, I can take this guy and try to make it just a fight in the trenches, as they say. But it wasn't a great performance from Billum Smith.
Billum Smith is 30 years old right now.
Is he? I thought he was younger than that. Is he?
I believe he's 30, unless I'm wrong. I believe he's 30, but
he looks good for 30.
But I mean, where do you think his ceiling is now? I mean, it's 12-0, 12-1. I'm sorry, 12-1. How far can he go up if he keeps doing this?
It depends on who leaves the division, I think. A lot of people in the cruiserweight division, once they've kind of got to those world title levels and they've got a bit of a name about them, they move up to the heavyweight, just to get those kind of paydays. You're getting heavyweight money in the heavyweight division. So, they're not necessarily going to win anything, but they know they're going to get a bigger payday than they will in the cruiserweights. It depends how long Okolie lasts in there. How long does, I'm trying to think of the other guy. I forgot his flipping name. Bradis. How long is Bradis going to stay in the cruiserweight division before he moves up? If Okolie and Bradis meet, Okolie wins that fight, unifies, and then moves up to the heavyweight division. You've got a lot of titles that are hanging around, vacant. Billum Smith may be able to work his way in with the WBA since they seem to be in bed with Eddie and Matchroom, because every single fights on a Matchroom card is always for some kind of WBA title.
It's true.
So he could, be a title holder, as they say.
Title holder, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Anthony Fowler gets the third round knockout over Jorge Fortea for the WBA International Super Welterweight title. Fortea was down twice in round three. Official time of the stoppage was 3 minutes and 8 seconds. What'd you think about Fowler's knockout performance?
Kind of did, I think, what everyone kind of expected. There was a strange one where he kind of caught him with a jab and the dude just fell to the floor like he threw himself to the floor. It was just a very, very odd the way, unless Fowler has some incredible jab. But it's one of those fights I think that kind of suited Fowler because he was the bigger, stronger guy. And in some of the fights, he just kind of tries to out-muscle people because he tends to make weight really well and always tends to blow up and looks, considerably bigger than a lot of his opponents. I think, slowly but surely you're starting to see some changes with him being with Shane McGuigan. But I think the funny thing is you always talk about Fowler as a prospect. He's 30. That's
what I was going to say. He's 30 years old. That's like, you know what? Before you continue on that topic, that's just like as a side point. Can you call fighters prospects when they're in that age range or when they hit a certain range, and if they start boxing or they're barely hitting like some type of notoriety around that age, is it fair to still call them a prospect?
It's kind of odd, I guess. It depends how you look at it in terms of, turning pro and how many fights they've had. They are a prospect, but in general terms, we're so used to people turning pro at like 18, 19. So, the early part of their career, they're also young. So I think it's kind of odd when you see someone and they're kind of talking about them in that prospect when he's 30 years old, because he's had a longer amateur career. I think I heard the stat today. He was something ridiculous, like 205 fights and 190 wins in the amateurs, Fowler.
Dang.
Which is incredible
That's incredible, yeah.
For an English fighter, because they don't fight as often as they do in like Russia, the Ukraine,
right,
in Europe. I may have heard that wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what I heard today. I think it was Rob Tebbett was talking about him on the Boxing Social.
I mean, we've seen examples of fighters hitting, their financial peak or their world championship caliber peak over the years. Somebody that comes to mind is somebody like Sergio Martinez. Sergio Martinez hit his competitive peak and his financial peak in pretty much his mid-30s, early to mid-30s, almost, something like that. I mean, when he knocked out Paul Williams, how old was he?
He was definitely early 30s. He just had a very strange career, wasn't he? He was kind of like a journeyman and just kind of had that weird purple patch where everything came together because he was so unorthodox, and he was picked up by Lou DiBella, and then he pushed him on, and he dominated. Great fighter. Right.
Yeah, he got a chance to get with somebody who's connected to the bigger game in a sense in the sport, and he took advantage of it. So, it could happen. It's not that it's out of the realm of possibility. Obviously, there's examples of it over the years in the sport of boxing, but it's not as common as people think. Like you said, when you think of a prospect, you think 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 years old, naturally, but you could still be a prospect essentially from a boxing experience standpoint at 30 years old, which Anthony Fowler is or isn't. What do you think? Maybe.
I guess in terms of boxing, I don't know though, because maybe not, because if you think about it, a lot of the guys who've had as many amateur fights as he's had, they were fighting for world titles in 6, 7, 8 fights.
Right.
But he was losing to Scott Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I get it. But that is an interesting topic. I feel like we should get somebody on in the future and discuss that in further detail. That seems like an interesting topic in terms of the whole prospect thing. Also, this past Saturday from the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, it's a mouthful, on DAZN as well. DAZN was busy these last couple of days. Virgil Ortiz Jr. gets the biggest win of his career and the 17th knockout of his career in 17 fights as he stops Maurice Mighty Mo Hooker for the vacant WBO International Welterweight title. Ortiz did get tagged up. You can see it in his face. This is probably the most he's been hit in the 17 fights. Maurice Hooker did get some shots in. He did some pretty decent body work. Every time I see Mo Hooker fight, I forget how long his reach is. It's ridiculous. And I picked Mo Hooker last week. I did. I picked him. I think I just went out on a limb, even though I didn't disagree with people picking Ortiz. But Hooker did give him a fight. He did tag him up, and it did look like he broke his right hand off of a punch. It was like in an exchange. It looks like Hooker landed on the top of, if I remember correctly, on the top of Ortiz's like forehead or something like that. And it broke his hand or fractured Maurice Hooker's hand. And he went down to one knee, and you can tell he put his hand like under himself and pretty much indicating that something was wrong to his hand. What do you think about this fight, Mike?
I mean, I had a feeling, I picked it last week. I thought Virgil would win by KO. He's just a beast. I remember seeing him a couple of years ago when he was training with Joe Diaz before he moved over to Robert Garcia. He was in there and he was kind of schooling, Massimiliano Lopez, Lucas Matisse, people like that. And you could just see that he was one of those young guys that didn't mind jumping in there with more experienced, bigger fighters to learn. And you can see that now he's never scared. He's kind of shows you like different things. He's very intelligent. He works to the body, like whether Mo Hooker, hurt his hand or not, Ortiz was going to take him out. He was just literally putting money in the bank all night, just going to the body. And like I said earlier, where Okolie has realized and uses his physical attributes, Maurice Hooker doesn't. Some rounds he'll use that 80-inch reach. He could just stand there like a Stretch Armstrong and just jab, 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 jab. But he doesn't. He's kind of like Khan. As soon as he gets into a fight, he's like, all right, let's do it. And you can't do that with Virgil Ortiz. That's not, Hooker's strength. But, he just has that warrior spirit. He's got that fighter spirit. As soon as he gets tagged, he just wants to stand and bang and instead of sticking to the game plan, because there's not many fighters in that division, if any, who've got an 80-inch reach. He could have just made the fight boring, stood on the outside, just tried to keep Virgil at bay, using the jab, don't let him come inside. But, he couldn't keep him off. And then Virgil just grounds people down. And, every time he steps up against these opponents, like Mauricio Herrera, now Hooker, he just shows how good he is. And, I think we were saying it years ago when we were in this studio. We kept saying how Golden Boy should have put the money on Virgil Ortiz instead of putting all the money on Ryan Garcia, because 5-10 years from now, Virgil Ortiz will definitely have the better resume and the better legacy as a fighter.
Who becomes world champion first, Ryan Garcia or Virgil Ortiz?
I think Virgil Ortiz might, and he's in a harder division. I just thought of what I said there. I just thought, go back. 130.
Rewind it.
47.
It's a hard one.
Both hard divisions, aren't they?
That's a hard one. Yeah. That's a hard one.
The problem is for Virgil is that all the belts are on the other side of the street, right?
Well, technically, yeah, but
PBC and Top Rank.
Right. But
And Ryan, they're all tied up with Teofimo Lopez, right?
in a sense, and Devin Haney's on the zone. Matty Hearn.
Maybe Ryan, because Teo will probably fight. He'll move up to 140. All of those belts will become vacant. He's already placed very well with the W, probably all of them by now, actually. And
yeah, he'll fight for the vacant title at some point.
Yeah, against someone who's ranked in the top 15 or whatever.
Right, but kind of transitioning back to Ortiz and Hooker. You mentioned now of Hooker, utilizing he needs to utilize his reach more and his length. Is that how you beat somebody like Ortiz? Is maybe keeping him at bay with a jab so he can't get inside, even though he's always found a way to get inside and do what he needs to do. But if you have a really good jab and you kind of keep him at bay with it, where he can't really kind of get inside, and you keep him at bay with a jab and set it up with like the right hook or, the body shots like that. Is that how maybe you can neutralize Ortiz?
I would say so. I think Hooker, he really does have the very similar attributes to Okolie. He's very slim, very tall, has a huge reach. He should just look at somebody like Okolie and, be a 147 Okolie, because just keep people on the outside, very boring, 1-2s from the outside, because people have got to get past it. And if Hooker has any power, people will, start to think twice about coming inside once they get in, picked off from the outside with a good 1 and a good 2. But Hooker just gets drawn into things. I think sometimes he just kind of has laxes of concentration, and they cost him.
Right. But I appreciate that in fighters. He knows when he has to bang it out with the fighter, and he just goes after it. He goes after it. What he did it with Jose Ramirez, and now he did it with Vergil Ortiz. I mean, he came up on the losing end of both fights, but isn't that the definition of a fighter in a sense? Like, especially how fans want to see fights. Like, yeah, I want to see these guys go at it. And, you can be defensive minded, maybe like a Mayweather, and still pull it out and stuff like that. But if you're that type of guy, like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go after it. Boom. But, bang it out with him. That's exciting from a visual aspect as you're watching it on TV. That's exciting for the viewer.
He needs to go into camp, have a word with Terence Crawford, and be like, hey, buddy, I went over to England, fought Terry Flanagan.
That's true.
I fought Jose Ramirez for the undisputed. I then went and fought Vergil Ortiz at 147 after moving up, who nobody wanted to fight.
Right.
And you won't go and fight Errol Spence for maybe a little bit less money than he wants for his legacy.
Right. That's true. I mean, that's true. But, it's true if you look at it like that.
And how much is he getting paid compared to Terence? Chump change.
Right.
He was there. He was the big man. And he was like, you know what? I'll go over there and do that. They're still probably his biggest paydays. But, that old saying of, daring to be great, he come unstuck.
Right.
It didn't stop him. He did it again. I'm sure nobody wanted to fight Vergil Ortiz. Nobody.
Well, I think how because Golden Boy has a 2-fight deal with Hooker. I think they reported that he has a 2-fight deal with them. I think actually Oscar De La Hoya or Gomez or somebody, one of the executives, confirmed it. So his second fight will be under the Golden Boy banner, in a sense, on DAZN, most likely. Maybe. I could see that, maybe, but maybe that's how they were able to seal the deal with Hooker. Because, like you said, like, who kind of wanted to fight Vergil Ortiz right now? When this fight got made, I was surprised. I was like, Hooker's really going to take his first fight at 147 against Ortiz? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's other fighters out there, maybe like a Jesse Vargas or something like that, that Hooker could have, that could have been a decent matchup, his first matchup at 147 or something like that, but on Ortiz. And then they said, oh, he has a 2-fight deal with Golden Boy. I'm sure they offered him some pretty decent money. And, it kind of puts him in a position to, okay, even if I lose, they're still going to put me in another fight where I can kind of bounce back and get a win and still keep my resume up, in a sense, if you want to look at it like that. But who knows? I mean, they might put him against Alexis Rocha. They're both coming off losses now. Alexis Rocha obviously suffered his first loss of his career. In his last fight, So maybe they'll put them both together, but
That's
but I mean, do you really realistically see that, or do you see more Hooker kind of fighting maybe like a bigger name?
I think it was mentioned. I think it was Eric Gomez or someone like that. Mentioned it in an interview afterwards. I think that was the first name that came off his lips when he kind of mentioned going up against another 147, and Alexis Rocha was mentioned. And it makes sense. Like you said, both coming off losses. The Hooker a fight. They're probably looking for opponents for Rocha. Good fight. Very good fight.
Yeah, we'll see.
Big fan of both. I like both of them.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, it's unfortunate that Mo Hooker broke his hand, but I agree that even if that never happened, I think Ortiz just would have stopped him. So, it was nearing the end regardless. So, but Mo Hooker also in his post-fight interview kind of got upset at the crowd and gave him the middle finger and pretty much saying that he was a warrior. I mean, they were getting booed. I mean, it happens. It's boxing events. It's like WWE. It's like sporting events. People are going to root and cheer and boo the favorites and, the heels, if you want to use a wrestling term. So, and they're both from the Dallas area, but it is what it is. He'll be back. But Ortiz, man. Now they're talking about they were trying to make they want to make a fight with Terrence Crawford, the WBO welterweight champion at 147 pounds. I thought one thing that I really respected about Ortiz, and when I think Chris Mannix was talking to him in the post fight in the ring, he asked him about fighting Terrence Crawford, who Terrence Crawford was in attendance at that fight, because obviously he's in Mo Hooker's camp. And Ortiz responded, "I don't care if I'm ready or not. I want that fight." I mean, that shows you all you need to know about the guy. Pretty much saying, "Man, even if I'm not ready, I still want that fight. Give me a chance. Give me a chance to see what's up." That, you know what? Like, I saw some people on Twitter kind of saying, I don't know if he's ready for Terrence Crawford. And some people are saying, just let him get in there if he wants to. He wants that warrior attitude. I mean, I could see both sides, but I'm on the side where he said it. He's like, he doesn't care if he's ready or not. Let him get in there and give him a shot. I agree. Throw him in there. It's not like Crawford, like you mentioned earlier. It's not like Crawford has all these options. They interviewed Crawford in the post-fight. Chris Mannix did, I think, as well, and asked him about Spence. And then he said he's moved on for Spence. And then he asked him about Ortiz, and he said that he's on to bigger and better things, or pretty much saying like, oh, I'm after bigger fish, or bigger things. In a sense, he's right. In a traditional sense of the word, he's right, because he's been champion for a couple years now out of 147. He's one of the best fighters in the world, at least from the eye test and skill wise. And he should be fighting like Spence, Porter, Danny Garcia, those guys. But the reality is he's not. Al Heyman, PBC, and all those fighters at 147, they're boxing him out. They're keeping him out for as long as possible, and they're doing it on purpose. And, there's issues between PBC and Top Rank. Virgil Ortiz, and you tell me if you agree with me or not, is the best option for Terrence Crawford right now.
Yeah, but by far. I mean, it like we've touched on before, the PBC aren't going to let Terrence Crawford fight one of their fighters. If anything, they'll wait till October. They'll wait for his contract to expire with Top Rank, and they'll try and sign him. They're not going to put a belt on the line that he can steal and take over to Top Rank. Unfortunately, I mean, we don't agree with this. It's just the nature of the business, unfortunately. And where does he go from there? He's fought a whole list of nobodies at 147. He's fought, obviously, Amir Khan, Kell Brook, but I think we can all, confidently say that they're both, years and years past their best. They still had the name, but, they're past their best. I mean, his best victory was probably, I don't know, Victor Postal, like years ago.
Yeah, that was in Vegas. Yeah, that was in Vegas at the MGM.
Yeah, his best win at 147 is what, Jeff Horn or Jose Benavidez?
Yeah, is it Postol or Indongo?
It's I mean, Postel and Nundag they were at lightweight though.
Right. But like, if we're talking about the best win in his career overall, so far. Yeah. Like, we're not talking about 147. We're just talking about most significant, It's
just disappointing, Like, we keep saying that. I know Crawford isn't that sort of guy. He's very black and white, straight to the point. He's not really like that pantomime guy that's going to, try to build up a fight. But he should have said something. He should have put the onus back onto Errol Spence and just been like, I'm past it. I don't really want to fight him anymore. I'm, sick of waiting around or whatever. Just, say something, like, hey, Spence, let's go. Let's make it, blah, blah, blah.
I just feel like I don't know, maybe Top Rank or something. Like, there's something else going on behind the scenes or something. Because imagine if he was getting interviewed, Crawford, when he was getting interviewed by Chris Mannix, and Chris Mannix is asking him about Spence and, his next fight and stuff like that. And instead of Crawford answering like that he's moved past it, he doesn't care about the Spence fight or anything like that. He had the microphone. What if he just said, yeah, he's in the building. Tell him to come over here. Imagine the reaction he would have got from that crowd on TV. Like, where you at, Errol? Come over here, and build up the hype behind it like that. Both of them. And he calls him out and puts him on the spot. And then if people say, oh, Spence, why didn't you walk over there? Like, imagine that moment. Imagine that moment where you build the demand up like in the public eye like that. That's how you build up the profiles of each fighter, and you increase the notoriety of each fighter's profile in a sense, and you build interest in that fight.
That's the difference between him and Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez understands all of that. He understands creating the hype, attaching himself to, like, every time you see him now at a fight, he's wearing a Disney t-shirt, trying to get smart.
That's smart.
Yeah, trying to get some kind of collaboration with them or something like that.
I think the other day too, or within the last couple of days, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I saw him respond to the Doritos official account, the Chips, on Twitter, and he responded to them, and they tweeted something, and he responded. And when I saw that, I thought about he's been wearing a lot of Disney attire. I think he knows I think when he was wearing the Disney attire, he still is, but I think he looked at it as, well, I'm fighting on ESPN with Top Rank, who has an ESPN contract. They're owned by Disney. They are Disney. Why not? If I'm wearing Disney, Disney memorabilia or Disney clothes or Disney brands, it's going to be easier for them to sponsor me because I'm already on their network. I'm on their platform. So it's smart. It's smart. You're right. But who knows? Ortiz, if Ortiz doesn't get a Crawford, which I'd be surprised if he doesn't. But if Ortiz does not get Crawford, who could he fight next at that weight class?
I mean, he's been calling out Keith Thurman. I just don't know how much Keith Thurman wants that. I'm sure.
You know what? Like, I know people were saying that they'd like to see that fight. In terms of resume, yes. But Thurman isn't the same as he was in 2015. He doesn't seem like he likes to fight anymore. He's made his money, especially after the Pacquiao payday, the Porter payday, Danny Garcia. Thurman, you got to respect the guy because he has fought great names. Garcia, Porter, Pacquiao. I think he fought Robert Guerrero and all these guys. He's fought great names, and he was on a roll, but then I think he broke his hand or he broke something, and then he got married, and then he like I mentioned, the Pacquiao payday, and I think he just kind of lost his steam, and now he's like, oh, well, yeah, I'll come back when I come back. In terms of a name on the resume, I think that's a great matchup for Ortiz to get Thurman on his resume. And Thurman maybe could still have something left. But personally, if there's better options available, I wouldn't want to see that fight because I still think Ortiz beats him. Because I think if he had 2015 Thurman against Virgil Ortiz now, then that would be a great matchup. But as a fan, I don't want to see that fight right now. I'd rather, if there's a better option, a bigger name, I would want to see Ortiz go after that person. What do you think?
mean, Thurman's, like you say, I agree. I think Thurman's kind of washed up now. He's just doing that Mikey Garcia thing of just looking for the big paydays, the same as Pacquiao, and trying to make as much easy money as he can before he retires. Looking at the division, you've got like a Jesse Vargas, Josecito Lopez, but they're in the same camp. I don't know, Omar Figueroa, Sergey Lipinets, Thomas Delorme.
Wasn't it Lipinets? Was it? I feel like I saw people mentioning his name.
And he would be a good fight, perfect kind of style for Virgil, just a come forward fighter. Virgil would probably look very good. I imagine he would, Lipinets would try to walk him down, and Virgil, I think, would probably pick up his 18th.
See, I think that's a better. I think that's a better matchup than a Thurman. Even though Thurman is a bigger name, you get paid more money in that one. I mean, in that regard, I understand, but I think it's just me thinking about Thurman not being the fighter that he was in 2015, and he doesn't seem like he has the same hunger or the same steam behind his punches and his abilities. Even if he fights a Thurman, I'm still going to watch it. I'll still look forward to it, but I would like a Lipinets. I think that's a great matchup too, but no Jesse Vargas. I think Ortiz knocks him out easy. But obviously everybody knows the biggest names for an Ortiz to fight, for anybody to fight, are Danny Garcia, Sean Porter, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence, Manny Pacquiao. Those are the names. Those are the money names, and those are the most competitive names that you can fight. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. It's already tough enough for people to get. It's already tough enough for other fighters at 147 who aren't under the Al Haymon banner to get those fights. So we'll see how Ortiz does in the future.
None of those people you've mentioned have got a scheduled fight, and we're in March.
That's true. But I think Pacquiao out of that group fights first.
Yeah, Mikey Garcia in Dubai or Saudi Arabia or wherever.
I can see that. If I was Ortiz, I would be at that fight too. If he could. I mean, he's in the division, but he'll never fight Mikey Garcia. They're in the same camp, but who knows? But, definitely looking forward to who he fights next. And then Mo Hooker, he might go against Rocha. That's a pretty interesting matchup. So we'll see. We'll see how the two goes. But I think both of them in their careers, they're still at good spots. Ortiz obviously had a better spot going forward, but Hooker still has a lot left, and he's in a good spot to move forward and still get some decent matchups and some decent paydays moving forward. Also on the card, Seniesa Estrada gets the first world title of her career as she gets the 10-round unanimous decision win over Annabelle Ortiz for the WBA minimum weight world championship. Seniesa is a product over here of East Los Angeles here in Southern California. We've seen her fight in the local events here in Southern California, from Indio to Los Angeles and LA Fight Club in downtown LA over the years. And now in her 20th pro fight, she's a world champ, and she's been on the show before. So friend of the show. She was in actually our studio when we were in our studio before COVID and the pandemic. What'd you think about Estrada's first world title win?
Good performance. One of my favorite female fighters. You can see that she's kind of modeled herself from Roy Jones Jr., real flashy. She's, just too strong, too fast, too athletic for most of the girls in her division. And I thought we were going to see a knockout. She dropped Annabelle Ortiz early, and I was like, yes, we're going to get like a knockout in a women's fight, in a women's world title fight. And Seniesa Estrada has a very good style for, the fans at home to watch. So it would have I believe, been a great, opening fight, just before the main event for people who are tuning in to see women's boxing. Flashy, goes in there, she looks good, she drops her and knocks her out. Oh, thinking, good, it's going to take women's boxing onto that next level. But I don't know, maybe just because they had the 2-minute rounds before, you kind of get warmed up, you're feeling each other out. She couldn't get that extra minute to, jump on her and get her out of there. But it was still a good performance. She won pretty much every single round against Annabelle Ortiz, she'd been the champion for something like 7 years. She was a long time. So onwards to the next one, I think. I think they're talking about her fighting Katia Gutierrez for the WBC. So it'll be kind of good to see Estrada kind of take all the belts in and around that division. And she may have to move up, but, she's kind of actually been moving down in her career. And I think the power looks better at 105 than it did at, I think, 108 and 110. So I think it's probably a natural division to stay in. Maybe try to unify and, wipe out the whole division. And then if she has to move up, but I think she looks a lot better at 105.
Yeah, we'll see. But congratulations on her first world title win. She's definitely been a good type of investment for Golden Boy, now that she's pretty much taking advantage of every opportunity they put in front of her. So congratulations to Team Estrada. Moving on. Also this past weekend, Artur Beterbiev, one of the monsters at 175 pounds, light heavyweight, gets a 10th round stoppage over Adam Daines. Or is it Deans? How do you say that?
People were saying, because I think he's actually Russian. They were saying, I think it was
Dienes,
I believe.
Beterbiev retains the WBC and IBF light heavyweight titles. What'd you think about Beterbiev's performance?
I thought we were going to get the old Beterbiev, and he dropped him early on, and I was like, oh, here we go. It's going to be an early night, and then I don't know. He either took the foot off the gas and wanted some rounds, or
I think that's what it was. I think he wanted rounds. That's what it looked like to me.
I did wonder whether, because obviously people say that COVID, even when it's gone, it kind of lingers for a while, and people have kind of cardiovascular problems for months and months afterwards. I did wonder, are we still seeing like a little bit of the COVID still in him from when he tested positive last year, or was he just wanting those extra rounds? But eventually he took him out there in the 10th round, and he moved on to 16-0, 16 KOs, and pretty similar to Virgil Ortiz, both of them in and around the same amount of fights, and just all of them 100% knockouts. I think he kind of needs to try to get the undisputed, try and get all of the world titles in the light heavyweight division. I think he's 33, 34 this year. I do wonder whether, Canelo will wait till he's 35, 36, and Canelo's like, hey, come on, Beterbiev, let's go. Let's me and you go.
Maybe.
You'll just wait till he's past it and then trying to add him to the resume.
Maybe. I think Dougie Fisher, editor-in-chief of the Ring Magazine, had told us before, I believe, that he believes that's a dangerous matchup for Canelo, but he thinks he would favor Canelo in that fight. So that's an interesting pick because Beterbiev, based on the fights we've seen, he's a monster. He's definitely the monster of that division. But I think another champion at that weight class, I believe he has a WBO or is it WBA, Dmitry Bivol. I think they just reported that he's going to be on a zone card in May
against Craig Richards from the UK.
Right. So, I mean, if you look at the timing, Beterbiev just fought pretty much the end of March. Bivol is going to fight in the next month and a half, in a sense. So I think that they should still be close enough in fight dates like this where they can both fight towards the end of the year. Maybe like September, October.
I believe they're doing Joe Smith Jr. against Maxim Vlasov for the vacant WBO. And then the winner of that, hopefully Joe Smith, will fight Artur Beterbiev because that's all top rank. So you'll have the WBC, IBF, and WBO between Beterbiev and Joe Smith, hopefully later in the year. Now,
I could see that, but I think Bivol is a better matchup in terms of competitiveness for Beterbiev than Joe Smith is.
Yeah. Well, the thing is about Beterbiev is even though he always wins by knockout, he does get caught and get dropped. He does have, he does make the odd mistake here and there. Like obviously when he fought Callum Johnson actually managed to catch him and drop him. He always finds a ways to win though. You got to give him that.
Right. That's also the polarizing quality from a fighter as well in terms of fan favoritism. But we'll see. I'd still like to see Bivol and Beterbiev in a unification matchup later this year. But if they don't fight each other later this year, especially if Bibbles comes out victorious in his next fight, I believe in May, we won't see that fight until next year, assuming they both keep winning and still have their titles. So, but I'd rather see it later this year. I mean, unification matchup at 175 pounds. Give it to me, man. Give it to me. Moving on, fight previews this upcoming Actually, no, we'll start with this upcoming Thursday, March 25th from San Juan, Puerto Rico. Once again, Ring City, USA on NBC Sports and Twitch. Amanda Serrano, 39-1-1 with 29 KOs, goes up against Daniela Bermudez, 29-3-3 with 10 KOs. What do you think about this matchup?
Don't care till she fights Katie Taylor. She keeps making excuses and says, Eddie didn't want to do this, do that, when she had the contract and she turned it down to go on some reality TV show and then complained about it, and she's fighting all these people we've never heard of. Is
that when because Lou DiBella is her promoter, is that when Eddie Hearn, I believe, was responding, or someone was responding, maybe it was Katie Taylor, was responding to her on Twitter and called out Lou DiBella in terms of like the negotiation, and then Amanda Serrano tagged Lou DiBella and said, hey, how come you didn't, I wasn't aware of this, and then there was kind of like some beef right there, and Lou DiBella kind of chimed in and was kind of upset, and this is ridiculous, unprofessional, and something like that. And I thought that was a very interesting back and forth right there. But I think that we'll see her and Katie Taylor by the end of the year. There's no way we don't. If we don't, it's not like they have too many options. There's no way they can't. This isn't Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence and Sean Porter and Danny Garcia and Manny Pacquiao. The division's not deep.
No, it's not at all. You do wonder how long is Katie Taylor going to go on. She's kind of cleaned out most of the division, and it looks like Serrano was making excuses not to fight her by the looks of it. Because what she done since then? Nothing. She just fought a load of nobodies and padded her record out to what is she, like 39-1? So,
but it would be a pretty intriguing matchup, her and Katie Taylor. So
it would be a great fight. Serrano is heavy-handed. For the women's division, she's 39 wins, 29 KOs. So she does have power.
Yeah, she does. That's very telling.
To stop going around and talking all this trash and then she's going off to fighting these absolute nobodies in the division. Just, she's not getting any younger. Neither is Katie Taylor. Just win this fight. Katie Taylor faces Tasha Jonas, and May the 1st, she beats Tasha Jonas, fight each other. And then,
right.
I don't know, if Katie Taylor wins, to be honest with you, that's a good victory to retire on. She's pretty much done everything she can. She can't really go up any more divisions and fight Clarissa Shields, and Clarissa Shields doesn't want to come down to fight her. So
right, yeah, that's not going to happen. But we'll see. I agree. They need to fight each other, especially if they're both victorious in their following fights. This Saturday, the 27th of March, from how do I say that? Gibraltar? How do you say that?
Yeah, Gibraltar. That's how
I knew it was pronounced differently on Sky Box Office and DAZN. Oh, it's a paper. Oh, I forgot. It is a pay-per-view fight over there.
Those poor guys in the UK.
The rematch. But you guys still pay less overall than we do over here. What is it, like $15, $20 pounds? Excuse me.
I think it's like $19.99. So yeah, 20 pounds.
So either way, it's still less over there than the United States. So
it blew my mind when I first moved here and I saw Mayweather was fighting somebody, and I think it was $100 for HD.
Right, it's different.
I took a picture. I took a photograph of the TV screen.
Yeah.
Sent it to my friends on WhatsApp. I was like, have you seen how much a pay-per-view is in the US?
It's true.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, hey man, if they give us a couple events a year at $20, 20 pounds, 25 pounds, I'm all for it. But Alexander Povetkin goes up against Dillian Whyte for the WBC interim heavyweight title. Obviously, people remember that Povetkin pulled out the upset knockout win last year in a fight that he was losing up until that point against Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte actually got knocked out from a right uppercut. It was sweet. Arguably the knockout of the year, one of the knockouts of the year. And Povetkin ends up winning that card. And then they were supposed to fight. They were originally scheduled to fight again, but then I think Povetkin said they had COVID, or he got COVID reportedly. And then people didn't know if it was going to be made. But now it has officially been made, assuming nobody gets COVID or nobody has any issues before Saturday. Povetkin is still dangerous. He's still a dangerous fighter, but I believe Dillian Whyte's, just like the first fight, he's going to be winning every single round. He's going to be a lot more cautious, but I don't think this fight is going to live up to the hype of the first one and what people believe. Am I wrong?
I kind of keep going back and forth on this because Whyte was winning convincingly. I keep thinking to myself, oh, he'll make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. He'll be kind of a bit more cautious, kind of like, AJ in the Ruiz, rematch. AJ was just very cautious, didn't overcommit, anything like that. But the problem is that some of this, the way that he got knocked out, which, is perfectly set up by Povetkin. And, Dillian Whyte has a few, minor technical, deficiencies about like leaning over his front foot, stuff like that. And, he's only having a few months to go away. Is he going to be able to iron those out? Because maybe that was something Povetkin saw, and obviously he was going to the body constantly, which made obviously Dillian Whyte drop his hands thinking that Povetkin was going to go to the body, and then he just changed it into an uppercut and, caught him, and that was all that she wrote.
That was a sweet shot though.
Yeah, great shot. It's obviously something that looked like Povetkin had kind of been setting up all night, and then, it paid off, obviously paid off big time. But I saw something, I think it was today or yesterday on Twitter, that a lot of people were saying there's no VADA testing, so we could have
are you surprised?
Two juicy monsters in the ring, so we could see like a 20-year-old Povetkin just walking there.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised, Mike?
Yes and no, because I know that Dillian Whyte before used to pay out of his pocket for VADA testing to make sure his opponents weren't juiced to the gills, and it's looking like this time maybe Dillian wants a little bit of that, that extra help, shall we say. Maybe that's why they're not doing it. I mean, that's all a rumor as well. I don't know whether there is VADA testing, but VADA do normally post something on their social media saying that so-and-so have entered testing, and they will then put another tweet out afterwards saying, hey, congratulations.
Yeah, they did that with Canelo and Billy Joe Saunders, I believe, today.
Oh, really? Yeah. So somebody was posting about that. So it's all a rumor.
Right. Yeah, it's a rumor at the moment. So
don't want to get sued.
Yeah, of course not. But we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But I don't think it's going to live up to the hype of the first one. But it's not like Povetkin doesn't have a shot. He obviously has the power. He pulled it off in the first one, and like you said, it seemed like he was setting up that shot the whole night, and he finally found an opening and he landed it. But I think Dillian Whyte's going to be very cautious, a lot more cautious this time. This could be a really boring fight. It could be. It could be a very boring fight. More boxing than fighting in a sense, than engaging, which I could see. And then people, dish out their money for the pay-per-view and they're upset at the end.
Luckily, I don't live in the UK still. I was $19.99 for that.
And I mean, luckily it's on DAZN over here. So, if you already have DAZN, I mean, you still have to pay for it in a sense, but if you already have DAZN, it just pops up. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But if Dillian Whyte has a lot to lose and a lot to gain here, whereas Povetkin is kind of like, obviously if he wins, Povetkin kind of lines himself up for a pretty big payday with a bigger name again. And Povetkin's been in the game at the heavyweight level for quite a few years now. And I'm sure if he somehow pulls out the win in this rematch, he's going to get a bigger name again. Maybe he'll get a Wilder. Who knows? Maybe he'll get a Wilder. He was supposed to fight Wilder a couple years ago. Remember? Wilder was supposed to go to Russia for that fight, and Povetkin popped. Like you said, he popped. And now, kind of going back to your original point, there's allegedly, let's use the word allegedly, no VADA testing, no drug testing for this fight. But You never know. Maybe Wilder might look at it. Wilder and Heyman and his team might look at it like, oh, he just won 2 fights in a row against a highly ranked guy in Dillian Whyte, who was trying to fight me years ago over the years. I mean, he should have fought him. He was the mandatory. But if I was Wilder, especially if Povetkin wins, even if Dillian Whyte wins, if I was Wilder, I'd try to make fights with them.
Did it ever come out when Dillian Whyte tested positive against Oscar Rivas and the UK AD just had a little sit down the morning of the fight and let him fight, and then he was Thomas Hauser. Thomas Hauser was the one who exposed it, and it never came out what he tested positive for.
Oh yeah, they kept that a secret.
Yeah.
Eddie Hearn really dug that into the ground. Yeah. They kept that a secret. I don't know what they did, but they definitely kept that a secret. But who knows? I don't think it's going to live up to the hype, but we'll see. We'll see this Saturday on DAZN. DAZN's just churning them out still, man. They don't stop. Also on that card, Ted Cheeseman, 16-2-1, goes up against Jesse Metcalf for the vacant British super welterweight title. What do you think about this matchup? At least he's not. How come he's not fighting Eggington again?
I don't know. One half of the egg and the cheese, Ted Cheeseman.
Right.
It's a good fight, really, for Ted Cheeseman to see, how he's getting on. He had a great start to his career. He beat Byfield to win the British title. And then, obviously, he went away for the European title, lost in that fight against Sergio Garcia, and that was back in February of 2019 now. He had a few problems away from the ring, which he managed to sort out, came back, had that kind of back-and-forth fight with Sam Eggington. So this should be a good test for him against James Metcalf, who comes in undefeated, carries some power. So it should be an entertaining fight, but I just don't know whether should be that high up on what is essentially a pay-per-view card. Kind of feel the British fans are getting ripped off with this.
Metcalf is the son of the former WBO champion. Is it
Shane Neary?
Shane Neary, right? So Neary are actually, these are UK fighters, right? Like they're bigger names in the UK. I'm assuming
big in the UK, I'd say. More British level. Obviously, this is a British level fight. I don't know if many of these will be kind of known massively over here yet.
WBU is that World Boxing?
The old WBU title. That's what. Remember when Ricky Hatton was big? Ricky Hatton used to always fight for the WBU, World Boxing Union, I believe it is.
World Boxing Union. That's what it is. Yeah, I was trying to figure out what the acronym stands for. I was like, what does the U stand for again?
Yeah, I think it's World Boxing Union. Remember that back in the day?
The
there's
WBU.
A few guys. I think was it Shane Moley, Evander Holyfield used to hold it as well, and then it kind of just disappeared. Right.
I mean, imagine one day just one of the big names like Canelo or something like I want to go after the WBU title. Imagine all the people, that organization who owns the WBU title. Holy shit, let's do it! Hell yeah! You never know, man. You never know. We'll see. Also on the card, Chris Kongo, 12-0, goes up against Michael McKinson for the WBO Global. What the hell is this global welterweight title? What is that? How is it possible that there's always a new belt somewhere? Like I'm trying to remember if I've ever seen that global welter. Global? Isn't that the same as world champion?
You'd say it was bigger, right?
I don't know. One day we're gonna have an episode just dedicated to all the titles and diving into the history and where we're at now and kind of going there. But what do you think about this matchup, Kongo versus McKinson?
Good, it's like sneaky good little matchup, really. Chris Kongo came of age, really. One of his biggest performances last year when he actually stopped Luther Clay. I think a lot of people thought Luther Clay was going to take that. Michael McKinson, he's a pretty solid guy. He's got some good wins on his resume. Doesn't carry an awful lot of power. I would, probably go with the A side. I think Chris Kongo should win this, but no, good matchup for two undefeated fighters.
Also on the card, Fabio Wardley, 10-0. The undefeated Fabio Wardley goes up against Eric Molina, 27-6. Eric Molina's been around for quite a while, and he's had some pretty decent names coming up on the losing end, but he's been in there with some pretty decent names. What do you think about this matchup?
good matchup, I think, for Wardley to look good. You know, Wardley obviously had that kind of great stoppage last time out against Richard Latte. You know, Molina's been in there with Wilder, AJ, Filip Hrgovic. So I think Wardley should probably take him out in, 3-4 rounds. I think, it'll just be too much, too big, too strong, too young. I think he'll just beat him down and either get the KO win or Molina may retire on his stool.
Maybe. But in terms of resume for Wardley, I mean, Molina's not half bad, especially with the names he's been in there in the past with like a Wilder, Anthony Joshua. Like, hey, that's how it works in boxing. You kind of connect the dots like, oh, well, Wardley beat him in 2 rounds and it took Anthony Joshua, 12 rounds or something. That's how they always utilize it. It's a marketing tactic, but it works. It works, especially for the casual fan. It does definitely work. I think also on this card, I think I didn't see on the news and notes here, but Ricky Hatton's son, Campbell Hatton, is also making his pro debut on this card, isn't he?
Yeah, I didn't put it on just because they had him as fighting the infamous TBA. I think there is an opponent. I believe he's fighting I think it's a Mexican guy, but it wasn't listed on BoxRec yet. Yeah. Hopefully,
what I look forward to now that we have another Hatton in the mix like this, give me back my chance. I want my chance back. Can we see, tell me this, Mike, in the future, can we see there's only one Campbell Hatton?
Oh, that'll definitely go out. As soon as they get crowds back out, I'm sure all the old Ricky Hatton songs will be out. Maybe all those guys, all the Man City fans that used to go to watch Ricky, they may go to watch Campbell, just because I'm sure Ricky will be ringside. He'll probably be in the bars with them afterwards. So, there may be kind of not as many, but there could be a small legion of those fans that follow the son that followed the dad.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. Rounding off the show here in the news and notes section, Mike Tyson and Evander Holyfield. The fight is on, according to Mike Tyson, Iron Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, I think, posted on social media that we don't need promoters. I mean, technically, he's right. He doesn't need a promoter. He's Mike Tyson. His whole name is a promotion. So is this official since it came from one of the participants in this event? Or is this more like, are they trying to, because I had read somewhere, and maybe I'm wrong, but I read somewhere that like Tyson, this next event, he's been approached by other broadcast partners, and it's not a for sure thing that it's going to be on Triller. This could be on another platform. He does have his own thing, the Legends League or something like that. It's called something like that. So maybe this is just Tyson's way of trying to put pressure and generate interest for it to have a broadcast partner come to the table with a better offer or with offers and put this fight on. Am I right or no?
Well, Tyson gave a fairly angry interview, kind of saying that he's not working with Triller again. He wants to do it using his own promotion, like League of Legends or whatever it's called. But then I think a spokesman from Triller came out saying that they have option on the first fight that was Roy Jones, and they also have an option on the second fight, which looks to be Evander Holyfield. So I don't know. Is there going to be some kind of legal wrangling? I don't think Tyson touched on why he was so peed off at Triller and didn't want to work with them anymore. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting because I think everybody kind of had that as either the main or the co-main to help kind of pay for the Teofimo Lopez and George Kambosos fight. They needed something to help bring that money in. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. But Tyson's definitely making some decent paydays here, and definitely capitalizing on his name. So we'll see how that goes. And also, Gervonta Tank Davis seems more and more like he's going the Adrian Broner route here. They were just reported in the Baltimore area. The Baltimore Sun, I believe, was the initial one to break the story. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was them. He has been indicted on multiple counts for a hit and run, an alleged hit and run that he's accused of doing. I believe sometime last year, if I'm right, or maybe it was 2019. I'm wrong, or maybe I'm not wrong. I'm not sure, but I had read that if he gets convicted on all counts, or I believe each count carries, a multiple year prison sentence. I mean, what happens here, man? Like it's not like in boxing, it's not unheard of that we see fighters kind of get in trouble with the law, even when they have a pretty successful career. But what's going on here, man? Like, I think we had this conversation back in the past, in past episodes, when he had some issues in terms of saying he needs to get away from Baltimore. He needs to move out from there. I understand his family's there and everything, and you want to be around that. But I think for the betterment of his career, I mean, move him to Vegas. Keep him around Mayweather. Put him over there, and every time he gets in trouble, it's in Baltimore.
Well, there was the rumor that when he signed with Floyd, that Floyd rented him an apartment, gave him a car, and all this sort of stuff, and then Davis pretty much sold the car and got rid of a lot of the stuff out of the apartment, and then went back to Baltimore anyway. That was because I think Floyd tried that. He tried to keep him in Vegas, gave him everything that he needed, and then Davis kind of still went back to Baltimore to see his friends and his family. So yeah, obviously I think it's hard for him. I don't think we'll see him if he does do any jail time. I'm sure it'll be a small amount. I'm sure he'll have a very expensive.
I mean, these are serious charges, though. Like,
you just unfortunately you just don't see rich people don't go to jail, if you want me to put it bluntly for you. Right. And I'm sure he'll have a very A-star, expensive legal team that'll fight his corner, find some kind of loopholes. Because I think in total he could have got 7 years or something. I don't know how true that is. That's just something I saw on Twitter. But yeah, we'll see. Time will tell what will happen. I'm sure it'll be delayed, and it'll push back in the courts, and they'll keep filing continuations, and he probably won't go to court for several years or something like that.
Probably they'll try to get a couple more paydays under his belt and try to raise his profile to build more public support or something like that. I mean, who knows? But the kid has talent. He's a talented fighter. He's obviously becoming popular and well known. He's arguably if you want to count behind Ryan Garcia, he's arguably the second most popular fighter at 135 pounds. I would say it's him and Ryan Garcia in terms of fame and notoriety in that division who have the biggest popularity. But if he keeps doing stuff like this, it's not like people don't know his name, because even this kind of publicity is still publicity. But if you go to prison, especially if it's a couple years, I mean, that's not good. It's not good when you're making millions of dollars in these boxing fights, and you're good, and you're getting world championships, and you're aligned with Mayweather, one of the best boxers and biggest personalities and celebrities in the world. But it is what it is. It is what it is, and good luck to him, and we'll see how it turns out as time moves forward. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of The Last Round. Before we sign off here, go ahead, Mike, and let them know where they can find us and follow us.
We're at The Last Round 12 on Instagram and Twitter, and be sure to join us next week. We'll be reviewing all the results from the Povetkin and Dillian Whyte card, and previewing the Uzbekistan DAZN card, where that has MJ headlining it against Ryosuke Iwasa. Shakram Giasev is also on there, fighting for the WBA International. Israel Madrimov is also on there. Just a whole host of guys from the Joel Diaz gym down the street in India.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. It's all his gym fighters right now. So we'll see how that goes. And once again, before we sign off here, we never mention it. We need to start mentioning it. I know we have it on our social medias, handles, and all that stuff, but we do have merchandise available. We have shirts and sweaters with The Last Round on there from Fit Warrior brand. I believe the links are in our social media. I know if you go to my Twitter and my social media handles, the link for the merchandise is on there. We're on there with a bunch of other fighters and brands Teofimo Lopez is on there. I mean, there's a lot, maybe 30, 40 different.
Everyone, Teofimo Lopez, Amanda Nunez, I think even Jamel Herring's on there. Lots of up-and-coming prospects are on there, like Xander Zayas. You got boxers, MMA fighters. You can get some Kobe memorabilia on there. And for people that don't follow us on social media, it's www.wtwrbrand.com. So an abbreviation of Fit Warrior brand.com.
Absolutely. And if you support us and you buy some, we appreciate it. This is just we're an independent podcast. It's just us. We put this on and edit it and put all the work into this show every week and week out for your boxing pleasure and your boxing needs. So definitely, if you buy one, go ahead and share it on social media and tag us, and we'll definitely share you, retweet you, or repost you, and we'll definitely give you a shout out on that next week's episode as a thanks. And the shirts and sweaters are cool. We've gotten shirts and stuff like them from Fit Warrior brand. They're good material. They're good stuff. They fit good. So check it out. I know we've been talking about getting some in the future and raffling some off on our social media handles. So I'm sure we'll do that in the future. And then, as events start opening up a little bit more, as hopefully we get towards the end of this pandemic, we'll take some merchandise to shows and, raffle them off or give some to people, but show us your support. Buy some merch, buy the shirt, buy the sweater. So for my co-host Michael Shepard, I'm Danny Z. This is the last round.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is the Last Round Podcast.